What's amazing about your story, everyone knows what you went through, losing your arm, but getting back in the water. And I think a lot of people in life, something happens to them and they stop. They're so afraid and they're frozen with that fear and they don't get back in the water, right?
Yeah.
Literally or figuratively. What was it for you that kept you moving towards your goals and your dreams?
Well, I think it kind of can be simply spoken as that I was just willing to try. Entering into life with one arm was like, yes, this is challenging. I'm having to relearn how to do everything just a bit differently. And that included surfing for me because I just didn't want to let go of surfing. And my fear of losing surfing was more than my fear of sharks. And over time, my fear of sharks kind of disappeared. And for me, it was just all about being in the ocean and being in my happy place. And I think too, when you go through something super traumatic, you want life to just get back to how it was before, so to say. And even though I had a new normal, I also wanted life to be kind of the same. So surfing was a part of my every single day. So yeah, I was willing to try and I got back out there, and after riding just one wave all the way to the beach, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a surfer forever. This is just what I'm gonna do.
And to go on to be an amazing surfer, right? One of the best, if not the best female surfers. That's what is just so incredible because again, when something happens, there are so many fears we have that are unwarranted fears. There are things that will never happen and they hold us back, but yet having gone through something that really did happen, to get over that. One of the elements of your story that I have seen you talk about, but it doesn't always get highlighted in mainstream press, let's say, is your faith.
Yeah.
And this is sort of a loaded question, but I'm just curious to hear what you would say. Your faith journey, can you just take us through that?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a Christian home and I had faith as a young girl, and even before I lost my arm, I just really wanted God to be a part of my life. And I didn't want surfing to be the forefront, even though I was very passionate about it, but I was like, God, I want you to use me with more than just surfing. And so I think going into the time of when the accident happened, I was already grounded in my faith as a 13-year-old girl, and I trusted that God had a plan for my life and that He was watching over me. So when the loss of my arm came, I truly had the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, that guarded my heart and my mind. And I didn't go through a phase of doubt or denial or anger at God. I just trusted that, okay, God, you allowed this to happen, and we're gonna get through it. And my mom had a similar approach. And I'm not saying it's wrong for you to feel angry through those times, because my dad did feel that, and I think that's
it's
only
human.
Yeah,
right.
It's only human. So everyone copes in their own way, but I just really believe God had His hand upon me and my family during that time, and still does today.
Right. I mean, what has kept you speaking out? Because some people would be very vocal, and there might be a film made, and Soul Surfer was a huge movie, and here we are talking about Unstoppable, a documentary, another film. But what has kept you continuing to inspire people and speak out?
Yeah, and it's funny because I definitely struggled with this role of being really well known, and I'm not the type to want attention or be celebrated all the time. I just like living a simple life at home and surfing and just being Bethany. But all of a sudden, there's so much attention on my story, and it's crazy because I went through some archives through making my documentary Unstoppable, and we had a ton of archive footage from me as a child. And there was an interview on me in the hospital less than 6 days after I lost my arm, and I was like, maybe I'll be able to share my story and help other people know God too. And that was super pure, raw, young Bethany, and I still feel the same way. And it's just amazing to see how God can take something that seems so awful but make it into something beautiful to bring Him glory. And I think all of us can share our stories in our own level, and it doesn't necessarily have to be all over social media or all over the news or in the public eye, but amongst the people around you, just sharing with your community of people that need to hear from you. And I think of being a young girl, and I had different people speaking into my life and kind of mentor mentor like, my youth pastor, Sarah Hill, and my mom and other good friends that they spoke into my life, and I needed that, and so do all our young people now. So whether it's on a big scale or a small scale, just sharing your life with others is so important. And so I cherish that opportunity, and I'm not always like, yes, I need to go and do this, that,
Sometimes you're probably like, okay, I'm tired.
And I've learned now, I'm like, yes, I'm tired, and like I need to be mom and wife first and foremost, and say yes and no to things at times, but at the end of the day, I'm really stoked to be able to encourage people through sharing my story.
What has motherhood, being a wife, what has that taught you just about faith and life?
Oh, it's amazing, so when we started filming Unstoppable, my husband and I were planning on waiting 4 or 5 years before we had kids, and then the accident happened, and I think it was 1.5 years after we got married, we conceived our first son, and I did not feel ready. I was not embracing this God-given gift, and I felt really struggling inside with, whoa, I'm gonna be a mom now. And even though this was something I always looked forward to, and I knew this is what I wanted, when it did, I was just distraught. And I think a lot of that was sin nature, and just almost the devil stealing this beautiful gift that God has for us. But after a while, I figured out, I got over it, and I started to see I was just seeing the joy in my husband, because he was pretty startled at first too, but then seeing him opening up with just being lit up, and seeing him get excited and my whole family around me, I was like, okay, stop being immature, stop just thinking these bad thoughts. And once I met my son the day he was born, I was like, oh my gosh, everything I just thought the last 1.5 years was ridiculous, or 8 months, whatever. And God definitely has a way of enriching life through parenthood. So I love being a mom, and it's just it definitely helps you kind of understand God's love for us too, because your little kids a little sinner, and they act up, and they're also such a joy, but you see them as a baby already kind of acting up, and you're like, okay, but I still love him immensely, and that's how God sees us, as we're living life on earth, and
absolutely,
He loves us immensely regardless of how we live out our life.
The mistakes we make, everything. Yeah. So my last quick question for you, what are you hoping people take away from Unstoppable?
I don't always word it like this, but I think through Christ we can live an unstoppable life, and that's hugely how I've lived out my life, through Christ empowering me to live out my life in an unstoppable manner. And I'm not saying I'm perfect or have it all completely figured out, or I'm lacking sin. That's not even it at all. But through Christ, I think we can live our version of unstoppable. And so I'm just kind of putting that out there as people get out there and see the film, and I hope they're encouraged in their own journey.
That's a powerful message. Thank you so much for coming down today.
Thank you.